Madam Clerk, do we have roll call?
Councilmember Mosby,
Present.
Councilmember Starbuck,
Present.
Councilmember Vega,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Janelle Osborne,
Here.
Mayor Bob Lingle.
Here. Okay, if everyone will rise, remove your hats, and we'll have an invocation by Pastor Bernie Fetterman. Let us pray. Gracious God, it's my honor and privilege to offer this invocation to you this night. The very word implies that we're calling upon you for your aid, protection, wisdom, and we're inviting your presence into our midst. Invocation implies that we do not have all the strength that we need on our own. It clearly is our acceptance that you are more than we are, and you have more for us. I invoke your gifts, blessings upon our mayor and our council, our city staff and employees, and those who protect us, our police and our fire personnel, and those in our community who serve and invest into the lives of our children and our youth, those who care for our elderly and provide them with hope, love, power, and kindness. Dear God, we all need you, no matter if we realize our need for you or not. Even if we believe that we are all sufficient in our intellect, our emotions, or our will, yet God, we know that you are there for us as we summon your presence. So I do that very thing. I summon your presence into this meeting for our leaders, our citizens, and those in our surrounding areas. Wherever there's hatred and animosity in our community, we invite your love. Where there's darkness, we invite your light. Where there's falsehood, we invite your truth. Where there's misunderstanding, we invite your clarity and a willingness to listen and to remain teachable. We continue to ask for your grace and your comfort for our neighbors to the south, who are still dealing with the loss of life, the loss of homes and property from the Thomas fire and the mudslides in Montecito, and those who are still caring for their neighbors. We thank you for their service. Would you strengthen them? And now I pray for the agenda set before this council tonight, and those who will speak here and share their thoughts and viewpoints. And at the end of this meeting and a closed session to follow, may they have done what they believe is best for our city today and for decades to come. Thank you, God, for hearing our prayers, spoken and silent, and we ask your blessing upon our lives. In your mighty name, amen. Amen. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to have a presentation to the outgoing City of Lompoc Economic Development Committee members. Sure, okay. Yeah.
Hello, members of the council. I'm Jasmine McGinty, Development Program Specialist with Economic Development. So we just have a couple awards we'd like to present tonight to a few of our outgoing EDC members for their 4 years of service here on the EDC. So the three members we'd like to recognize are Maria Hall, Tom Davidson, and Carol Newsom. So if you are one of those, please come up. So this is Maria Hall. She has been chair of the EDC for the past 2 years. She's been serving on the Economic Development Committee since October 2012. So I just have a couple of things to say about her. She's done a lot on the committee, and while I've been here, she's been a pleasure to work with. So thank you, Maria. Like I said, she's served 5+ years on the EDC, 1 year as the vice chair, and the past 2 years have been as the chair of the EDC. Total, she's attended 48 committee meetings with only 4 excused absences and 0 unexcused absences. So that's fabulous attendance, so thank you, Maria, for being such a pleasure. She has been the EVA subcommittee chair for the 2 years. The EVA is the Economic Vitality Award that we present to businesses on a monthly basis. So she's presented 33 of those monthly EVA awards and 2 of the annual EVA awards as the chair of that. With that, she's also prepared many articles for the Lompoc Record article that we have. She's written 14 of those articles and kind of spearheads that subcommittee as well. So thank you for doing that, Maria. She's created and updated the EDC Facebook page, and she's also made many, many presentations on behalf of the EDC. Some of those forums include the Economic Vitality Forums we had, one in 2015 and one recently last month, the Education Pathways to Preparedness Summit that we held in September, the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting, multiple City Council periodic reports, and the Leadership Lompoc Valley meeting. So with that being said, I'd like to actually welcome Teresa up here to say a couple words. She's worked with Maria a lot longer than I have, so Teresa.
Thank you, Jasmine. That was great accolades for Maria, and I just would like to also add that, you know, in addition to working with Maria and all the folks on the Economic Development Committee, as long as we have, these are folks that give their time. They come in after work. Sometimes we get the pleasure of meeting their families as well because, again, they're doing this in all their extra time. So thank you for sharing so much of your life with us and your family, and we are glad that you've been a part of our city family as a member of the Economic Development Committee. So thank you, Maria.
All right, well, thank you so much. You know, with regard to my attendance, I've heard it said that 80% of success is just showing up, so got that going for me. Anyway, what a privilege it's been for the past 5+ years to serve on the EDC. I've learned so much from all the former members, current members, Councilmember Osborne, and I'd also like to thank the city staff who's been amazing to work with, my fellow anteater, Teresa Gallivan, and my fellow Lompoc Brave, Jasmine McGinty. They do a fabulous job in everything that they do, so we definitely appreciate them. Also, thanks to my employer, Coast Hills Credit Union, for generously allowing each employee 20 hours a year to do volunteer work. So that helps a lot. And then also, again, to my family for supporting my volunteer work. I think I'll always wish that we could have accomplished more, but I'm proud of our accomplishments during my tenure. Just gonna leave you with a quote. Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in. Author unknown. So thank you so much. All right, can we do a family picture too up here? All right, get up here, you guys. Family members.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to do another quick sort of presentation. You know, if you were here a little bit earlier this evening, we're finishing up a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, a joint meeting with them. These are all commissioners are volunteers, and if you heard Commissioner Baker talk about all the volunteers that are going out to help maintain the Bike Skills Park on a regular basis. And then, like Maria Hall, volunteering her time, and all the members of the EDC. Lompoc is known for its volunteerism. So tonight, I have the honor of bringing forward Bo and Boss Brockett. Are you out there? Okay, come on forward. Bring your mommy with you. Oh, Grandma, okay. These two young men, come on up here, okay. These two young men have been going around the neighborhood. The swing set in the park near their home, Pioneer Park, has been gone for a while, and they're very sad they don't have a swing set there. So they've been going around to neighbors, friends, and collecting pennies for Pioneer Park. And I think it's just amazing what the two of you have been doing. I mean, I can't tell you how proud I am of you. So I know that we are getting a quote to replace those. We're getting a quote to replace those swings, and as soon as we have that quote, I can guarantee you, they just gave us some money towards this. It's amazing. Well, that's 200, 250, 300, probably over $350 right here that these kids have. This is just an example of, it doesn't matter who you are, you can make a difference. And kids, gentlemen, you are making a difference for your community. And we'll get that swing set in there as soon as possible, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Okay, do that. Just simply amazing. I can't. Okay, now to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Really just an update on a council request. The request to bring back the budget for an update in March. We had been targeting March 20th, however, recently learned that one of our key members of the budget team is not available on that day. So we'd like to ask if we can go ahead and bring that back to you at the first meeting in April.
Councilor Starbuck.
That was my request, and I have talked with the city manager about it and the circumstances, and I have absolutely no problem with having my request put off until the first meeting in April.
Okay. Is there an issue with any other council member? Okay, good. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, public comment on the consent calendar. Consent calendar is are items that are generally considered routine and will be passed with one motion by a council. But it's your opportunity now to speak on the consent calendar. You have up to 3 minutes. Anyone? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Any council member wish to pull an item? Councilmember Starbuck.
I didn't wish to pull an item, but I was going to go ahead and make a motion we accept the consent calendar.
Okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objections? Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, staff presentations and requests. We have a monthly update on the staff, from the staff on the finance management system upgrade.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm very glad to report that the implementation of Phase 1 is in full use, with the exception of fixed assets, which we're currently working on. We started in October, so we're still implementing July, August, and September, but we have October through January currently in the system. and we'll import those as soon as they're available from the old system. So we're in phase 2. Phase 2 is HR and payroll. What we have going on currently is that we're implementing all the pay codes, deduction benefits, accruals, items like that, and we've got those entered, and now we're working on position control and classifications, and once we get the entire framework open, we can import all the employee masters, and then the exciting things start like in March, April, and May. We do parallel runs, make sure that our system is reporting what our old system is reporting, or better, and that's what we're hoping for. And if everything goes well, then in June, we'll have a training for the employees on how to do timesheets and other information, and then we'll kick off July 1st because we have to start on a quarterly basis. If for some reason things aren't working as smoothly as we need to, it'll be pushed out to September 1st. But we're working hard. Everybody in HR and payroll and IT is working, trying to get these things together. Then the next exciting thing is phase 3. Phase 3 is the utility billing and revenue portion of our program. And we have our kickoff meeting February 14th, where we're going to plan out our schedule for the upcoming year. Phase 4, our work order system, that's going to be January 2019 to July 2019, and then phase 5, our community development, which includes business licenses and inspections and permitting. That actually begins July 2018, goes until July 2019. We are going to hire some part-time help because all these phases going in at one time, we're going to need some backup for our current staff. But we're very excited about the process so far. I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilman Starbuck.
The one question I have, Melinda, is since we've been printing our expenditure reports with this new system, we have no idea what fund the expenditure's coming out of now.
The 3-digit code in front of every program signifies which fund it is. So if the org number starts with 110, that means it's general fund. And I have a whole list, and I'd be glad to share that with you.
So the one right before the now name of who was paid is the new coding then?
Yeah,
under vendor?
So vendor is vendor number. I'd have to see what you're looking at to, I'm sorry.
Brad Wilkie, Finance Director. In the past, the information that was provided for the detailed expenditure records had that information. The check register only has the check number, the payee, and the dollar amount. So I don't think this particular report, even in the past, had that information. And as a good example, we consolidate payments for our own utilities. So it may sound crazy right now, and we'll fix it in the new system, but we have to cut a check to ourselves for our utilities. So we pay a bill that's around $200,000 for every single utility in town, but that goes against probably 50 or 60 different programs. So for something like that, it's impossible to show all the different allocations of that particular payment because you got City of Lompoc paid for utilities of $200,000. So not every payment is like that. Sometimes there's one payment for one vendor that's in one particular account and object, but that's not typically the case with a lot of our payments.
Right, in the past though, you would list those, say, just under a general fund type of an expenditure, it would say, but here now, there's no idea who municipal emergency services, this check here, who paid for it? What fund did it come from? I mean, is there a
Right,
way
that's
that
what
we
I'm
would?
saying is the check registers now and the check registers before have the same information. What was provided some years ago was an expenditure register. After a month was closed, we would provide an expense register that would show all that detail by account number. So it's two different things, because there's, in addition to what's on there, that you also have journal entries that are done every single month that don't even show up in the journal in the check register, because it's payment for internal services. So
Okay.
this is a snapshot of what we're spending going out the door. If you're looking for where that money is, what the responsibility is for that particular division and department, then that would be on the expense register that we could provide to council on a periodic basis. But it's not something that's part of this reporting mechanism.
Okay. One other thing, and this isn't related to the Munis update here, but talking with the city manager earlier, and she had mentioned that somebody on council had talked about it, and it made sense to me. Item 2 on the consent to every meeting is we're approving money already spent. Do we need to do that?
The regulatory reason for doing that was changed in the 1980s. So we've been following a practice that's been in place for 30-some years effectively for transparency and accountability. You're right, it doesn't need to be on the consent agenda to be acted upon, but I've talked to the city manager as well, and I was proposing to do, in the future at some point, a staff report that explained the transition from the 80s to how things are done now, but also to say we would continue to provide that on the agenda as an informational item rather than as a action item under the consent agenda. But back in the 80s, the state law changed where that didn't have to be done. Virtually every single agency that I know of in California, when I look at an agenda, has those on there. So it's just a matter of where it shows up and what the action is or non-action is to address it. So,
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Wall? Okay, thank you. Okay, status report on water and wastewater refunding bonds.
Brad Wilkie, Finance Director again. Mayor, council members, this is an update regarding what was presented back in September to start of a process to refund our bonds. Actually, I want to step back a little bit to the last item. Melinda's being pretty modest about the activities that we have going on with the enterprise system that we're implementing, because she's one of the primary project managers on it, but for the hard work that she's putting in, as well as Jeff in IT, that project would probably be behind. And one of the reasons why we're getting some extra help is to allow her to do her day job. So right now she's kind of doing double work on both the regular financial management, financial services manager work, as well as taking care of getting all the things that have to be done to get trainings and things input into the new system, so it will be up and running. And the payroll system, HR system, is very, very, very complicated, and we have to make sure we can duplicate what we are doing now with a very antiquated system with the new system, and make sure that everybody gets paid right the first time it goes out live. So that's going to be a very big endeavor to getting ready to do that in July. So I digressed, apologize for that. So this item is a real short update on the wastewater water debt refinancing project. If you recall, back in September, we did a presentation on this. We had done a lot of work up until September, and that was kind of the kickoff to get serious about it so we can get the issues refunded and can start to get some savings to the two utilities. So I want to show some of the progress we've made since the September 19th presentation, show some of the things that were hiccups since then, some changes that have been made to the offering statements since that the October 17th authorization, and show a calendar of what's going to go on over the next couple weeks. This is just a summary of what was provided back in September, the total amount of debt that we're talking about that would be refinanced. Here are some of the milestones that have happened since the October 17th meeting when the council authorized the refunding project to go forward. A couple weeks later, a revised draft of the preliminary offering statements, and there's two of them, there's one for water and one for wastewater, was distributed so the rating agencies and the bond insurers could review our project to see, to use that as their basis for ratings and for insurability. The city had a call with Standard & Poor's on the 15th of November. Standard & Poor's issued their ratings of A+ for water and A for wastewater on the 29th. Also on the 29th, the federal government passed the Tax Reform Act. I mention that because on November 3rd, that act was introduced in Congress. There are two things that were proposed to happen with that affect municipal bond issues. The Tax Act eliminated the advanced refunding mechanism that had been in place for over 30 years. And advanced refundings in the municipal market, after you've had your bonds issued for 10 years, you're able to refund them. That's just a part of the process. So we're doing that right now. So our bonds, the 98, 05, and 07 bonds, have passed that 10-year window. So that's when we started working on the refunding. But since 1984, advanced refundings were available where one time during that 10-year period between issuance and the call date, you can go out and refund your bonds even before the 10 years is up. So the tax bill eliminated that option. So what that did is it forced a lot of issuers that were considering doing advanced refundings at some point in time in the near future to speed up their process and do all that between November 3rd and December 31st so they wouldn't lose that opportunity to lock in some savings on their bonds that they had expected to be able to do. What that did is it put a glut of new debt on the market, and if you have that, then the pricing that we thought we might be getting was probably going to get eroded by that glut. And in the call today, we looked at the gross refundings, the new fundings that have happened over 2017, the whole year, is about $6 billion a week. In that time frame, in the December time frame when that advanced refunding was going away, the refundings in those weeks averaged about $15 billion. So that just shows you the significant increase in the supply. So when supply goes up, the demand goes down, and the buyers get a bit more selective. So we decided just to push it off until the current year, which caused a few things. It was, in addition to that, there were some other reasons why we did it. So, but during that period, we also got commitments on our bond sureties on December 7th. So we kind of pushed things back because of the tax bill. Another reason why we pushed it back is on December 22nd, the CAFR was published. And our financial advisors were asking me almost every week, are you done with it? Are you done with it? Because we have to put the CAFR information into the preliminary offering statements. So by delaying it until the early part of 2018, we're able to update the statements with the 2017 actual CAFR data, added an extra year in our projections, and so that everything was pretty much, we had two trains going down two parallel tracks, and we had to get them together. So that was a happenstance of delaying it because of the December refunding issues. So beginning on January 19th, we started ramping up quite a lot of activity to make sure we had offering statements that were ready to go to the investors so they could determine whether they want to buy the issues. We had a due diligence call with the underwriter on the 31st. Did some more updates based on that on the 2nd of February. Provided Standard & Poor's some information because between their ratings date and now was a little bit of time lag, so we wanted to keep them in on the progress. And then the next slide, I'll talk about what's going on this week and next week. But to give you this is actually one of the things that the attorneys wanted me to bring up is some of the changes that occurred in the offering statement since they were provided to you in October. Obviously, we changed the date of the offering from a 2017 issue to a 2018 issue. We incorporated the Standard & Poor's ratings into the statements, the bond insurance policies and the sureties into the statements. The debt service definitions changed because we got insurance, so we updated that definition. As I mentioned before, we updated the financial statements in the offering statements to reflect the 2017 final. And by doing that, we added another year on the projections. So we have 5 full years of projections in the statements. The federal tax status of the bonds was updated because of the surety bond. And we updated it based on the change in the city manager position. In the beginning statements, we had a lot of verbiage in there about how we did the rate changes for water. And that turned out to be somewhat confusing to many of the people who were reading them. So we did some simplification in the final one just to show these are the rates that were actually implemented during the time frame of the 5-year rate setting authority. Made it easier for the investor to kind of keep track of what's going on. So here's a kind of recap of what I mentioned back in September. All these bonds are going to follow the maturities of the existing bonds. The security is going to be there for the 2 issues rather than having cash as security. They remain tax exempt. The preliminary estimate was going to be about an 8.6% savings overall on the 2 issues. And that included a kind of a guess to anticipate kind of market degradation. And we've had some of that recently. But even with that, we're about at the same exact 8.6% expected savings based on the rates that are out there today. We'll be selling the bonds a week from today. So hopefully things will settle down, but we expect that 8.6 to be about where we'll be at. If the bond market deteriorates a little bit and goes down another 20 basis points, which is a big swing, we would still see about a 7% savings. So we're still quite a bit of savings, and if things stay the way they did today, the 8.6 is still where we were at in September. So having said that, their refinancing calendar going forward, we're here tonight to kind of give you an update. We had one final call with the financing team this morning to go over the offering statements. They will be posted tomorrow, so investors can start looking at them to see if they're interested. And we've selected the February 13th as a sales date because that's kind of a quiet day in the economic news world. So news always happens like on the 14th, the CPI is going to be published. The bond world doesn't like unanticipated news. So if everything is as expected, the prices won't change very much. But if the CPI was unexpectedly high or low, it might make a change. So we're trying to avoid publications like that. So the 13th is a pretty slow day. Mentioned that the 20th is a holiday for the city. During that week, there's some more behind-the-scenes activities that we'll be doing. I'll be out of the office that week, but I'll be able to take care of what needs to be done here. And then March 1st is when the next set of bond payments are due on the 3 existing issues. Those payments will occur as normal. And then on the 6th is when the closing date of the bond sale will occur. And then on April 6th, we'll take care of totally paying off and refunding the existing debt, and the project will be closed and the transaction will be over with. So there'll be a lot going on the next week, but that's the update. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Wilkie? Okay, well, thank you and good job. We'll find out if it's a good job in about a week, right? Okay, no, good job. Okay, now we're going to have an update on homelessness and related issues.
Sorry, Mayor. Just give us a Perfect. Leave just like that. And then I'll start it. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry for the delay. Technically challenged tonight. I want to just come back and talk about the homeless problem in Lompoc, in particular, the riverbed. It's not a new topic. We've been talking about this for a while. We had a special meeting in May, which was very informative, but no action items really came out of that meeting. And so I just wanted to kind of give you an overview and give you some insight to what's going on in the riverbed. Before I make my comments, I just want to reiterate that it's my opinion that being homeless is not a crime and being mentally ill is not a crime, and I know that you share that, that sentiment. But unfortunately, both of these conditions they're not law enforcement issues, but we get called when people are acting out. If it was up to me, we wouldn't be in the business at all. So our job, law enforcement's job, is to address the bad behavior and the criminal behavior. But unfortunately, people don't know who to call when there's other behaviors that aren't really criminal in nature. And so I've been trying to mentor my officers to realize, and dispatchers realize, when we should be responding to the homeless, because we've kind of become the de facto caretakers for many of the homeless and those especially that are suffering from mental illness. And this isn't how it should be. But I believe that these problems, homelessness and mental illness, are a community issue. And that is why I'm here today, to restart this conversation that we have not finished in the past. I'm asking our whole community to address these issues, from county mental health, housing authorities, transitional mental health, drug and alcohol rehab, business owners, residents, our schools and our churches. I think we all have a role to play in this. So, and also I know in the gallery there's folks from Home for Good, formerly C3H. Brian Halterman's here from the Homeless Shelter, County Mental Health, and other private nonprofit organizations that outreach to the homeless. So before I continue, I'd really like to just show about a minute and a half slideshow, just to show some pictures so we kind of know what we're dealing with in the riverbed, if I could figure this out. You see there's a lot of bicycles, stolen bicycles in the river, a lot of trash. Large encampments. There's a lot of open fires, especially on the cold evenings, which is a concern, especially if you talk to the fire chief. There's actually homes built into the sides of the embankment there. Some tile from probably Home Depot. A lot of stuff is stolen from Home Depot, and a lot of trash piles. So I just want to give just kind of an overview of what's out in the river, because I will say the folks living in the river are pretty good about being out of sight from the roads, but there are full encampments there, and a lot of biohazard, a lot of trash, so it's just an issue. You may recall that planting the seed cleaned up some of the area of the riverbed several months ago, and I have to say, you know, here's a grassroots organization that with minimal training, no funding, but big hearts, went out and did something. And that's what I like about Lompoc. It's what I've always liked about Lompoc since I've been here. We have you know, little town, big heart. So kudos to them. But I think that's why we should continue this conversation. Just to give you a little history, in the past years, you know, let's be honest, we've neglected the riverbed, the old adage, out of sight, out of mind. And I include myself in that. In the past, some advocates, when I first got here, were, you know, we had meetings and they said, leave the homeless alone. I can remember getting boxed around the ears, myself and the former fire chief, when we suggested this a couple years ago. But, you know, currently there are some families living in the riverbed, which, you know, children, well, maybe my partners could talk about who's living in the riverbed, but there's some very vulnerable people in the riverbed, and the numbers vary, but the point in time count indicates there's 212 homeless in Lompoc, but those included people in shelters. So depending on who you talk to, and maybe Jeff Schaefer can address that, there's anywhere from 60 to 100 people in the riverbed. So the crime over the past few years, the criminality in the riverbed has escalated dramatically. We've had thefts from grocery stores and liquor stores. Bikes have been stolen all over town. You saw some of the pictures. Tools, essential building materials from Home Depot have been stolen quite a bit. The Bike Skill Park has had at least 5 break-ins of their sea container and has even declined to take any more donated bikes because of the assurance that they too will probably be stolen. And the attendance is down at the Bike Skills Park because some parents don't want their kids there because the water fountain and the outhouse has drawn homeless people to the park there. Over the past year, the methamphetamine use and sales has exploded in the riverbed, so much so that the longtime homeless people that have lived in the riverbed are coming to us, the police, saying, please, can you get the drug users out of the river? They're very scary. They indicate that they're violent, that they steal from them, and that they are stealing in town to support their habits. There's also a lot of assault going on of female homeless folks, and particularly those suffering from mental illness. We know we've had you know, the serial sexual assault story has been ongoing for at least the last year and a half, and that's a great concern because these crimes have gone unreported. You know, we're hearing it, but we're not, the person that it's happening to will not come forward, and that's just horrible to me. In November, we had a murder in the riverbed stemming from a dispute and a retaliation over a woman, and then less than an hour later, the suspect was spotted, and when our officers moved in to arrest him, he opened fire on the officers and was fatally shot and wounded. These latest incidents showcase just how dangerous the riverbed has become. So we have been doing research. We're not idly standing by watching what's happening. Last month, I attended a national summit put on by the Police Executive Research Forum. It's a think tank out of Boston that talks, you know, tries to figure out best practices for law enforcement. There was at least 500 chiefs from all over the country and Canada and talking about how we should respond to the homeless, and they had a lot of great ideas. I'll just give you a couple of the ideas that I've been talking about myself. One of them is to have a full-time officer or unit that only deals with the homeless. And you know, what that does is it creates a partnership with the folks that work with the homeless and the mentally ill, and it also creates trust between those units or those officers and the homeless. And yes, we are the stick. You know, if there are bad behaviors, we'll address those. But at the same time, we can address it in a way where we could say, look, we can cite you, we can arrest you, or we can drive you over to talk to a doctor, or we could drive you over and get you some food and some clothes, and we could push you towards services. And I talked to a couple of the officers at this conference that are doing this, and it was kind of neat. There were veteran officers that, you know, they'd been fire-breathing young cops chasing the bad guy their whole career, and this is the best job they've ever had. And I asked one guy, why is that? He's from Ventura. He goes, because I make a difference. Because I'm getting people off the street, off of drugs, and getting help, mental help, and they actually consider me a friend, not the bad guy like most homeless people think of the police. So I would really like to do that, but we'll talk, that's another discussion. Arrest is the last resort for those units and those officers. It's really, they just work daily with the homeless, the addicted, the mentally ill, and they build that relationship and help nudge them towards services. They also build relationship, if you're doing that on a daily basis, with all the social service providers that are sitting in this room. You know, if you're not working with them daily, you won't know how to help the homeless because you don't know these great people in this room. So that is hopefully coming for us in Lompoc, but again, that's another discussion. One of the things that they talked about at this conference is the no tolerance approach and the heavy-handed approach that many in the community are asking me to undertake. Doesn't work. You know, we can't arrest our way out of this problem. We can't cite our way out of this problem. We do have to address the bad behavior, but I think we have to address it in a compassionate manner. And that was one of the biggest things that came out of that. So the heavy-handed approach to me doesn't work, but the do-nothing approach doesn't work either. I think that's putting your head in the sand. So officers to do this kind of work, they're going to need the time, they're going to need resources, they're going to need the backing, they're going to need the training to help those needs, and addressing the crime and livability issues and the nuisance issues. The whole time pushing folks towards services is the only way I think to do this. This type of unit would be able to take people to their doctor's appointments, take them to pay it forward and get them some clothes. You know, really, you know, if you give somebody a mental health appointment and you say, okay, Tuesday at 10, they're not going to remember Tuesday at 10, but we will. And we'll pick them up at 9 and get them a cup of coffee, and we'll get them over there at 10 o'clock. That's the kind of stuff that we could do and work in partnership with the folks, the good folks here in this room. So basically, correct the bad behavior, encouraging the good behavior, and the whole time cheerleading the homeless towards success is how these units work. Another idea that many jurisdictions have is drop-in centers. And these centers connect people with services, health care, training for job skills, interviews. And these centers are cheaper than the criminal justice system for sure, which, quite frankly, the criminal justice system actually perpetuates the cycle of homelessness because it only adds to the problems. In addition, Captain Mariani attended a training where the Ventura City homeless team explained how they address their riverbed, and as I said, they're very excited about what they're doing in Ventura. And I've spoken to the Ventura police chief, and he's offered them to come up here free of charge to train whoever we want to train. He only asks that we feed him, and Captain Mariani is going to pay for that. We do have a part-time liaison. I don't want to say we aren't doing anything, but Officer Tai Zhang has been our part-time liaison. But unfortunately, we don't have a vehicle that could go into the riverbed. Sometimes he'll go with Mark Oshamal when he has time, but right now he's a full-time field training officer. He's He's working patrol, and that's the priority. And then our staffing levels, we've had a hard time. So when we hire up to snuff, I would like to really think about starting one of those. So what do we do going forward? I think it's time to consider removal of all persons from the riverbed. This area has gone unsupervised for years. There's little to no law enforcement going on in the riverbed, and virtually it's kind of the Wild West. When we do show up out there, the homeless people are shocked. We had a detective go out there following up on a burglary, and he was looking for one guy. He arrested 7 people in one day. Because they're out there, and not all of them, but there's a lot of folks out there with warrants and, you know, out of sight. So it is a community that has existed, and the weak are preyed upon, and the survival of the fittest. And if some of the homeless people here, they may come up and talk, they do band together. They have to band together. And if you notice, when we had that murder, the young lady was really scared of who was going to protect her after that. So it is it's not, I don't think people should be living in the riverbed. I don't think it's as safe as we think it is. So if we were honest with ourselves, I think we have to admit as a community we have forgotten these individuals. Churches are feeding them, shelters are housing them, some of them, many kind souls are handing out food and money, but I think this is barely adequate and does not address the question of should people be living in the riverbed. So what do we do? What are our options? Here's what I'm not in any particular order the options I think. Option 1 would be to do nothing, and I don't think it's going to get better. Option 2 would be remove all persons from the riverbed and remove all the debris from the riverbed, and then support police officers patrolling the riverbed daily and continuously so that they don't go back in and camp in the riverbed. And then option 3 would be to remove all persons from the riverbed and leave the debris. The debris is where is ripe with liability. You can ask the city attorney. He's probably over here biting his fingernails right now. And we'll need to patrol the riverbed because folks will come back to their homes. You saw their homes. And then final thoughts. My sense is the Thomas Fire and the mudslides, what Los Angeles, what Santa Ana, what Long Beach, what Santa Maria is doing by removing their camps, we are seeing more homeless people. Myself, I've counted at least 10 folks that I don't recognize. This is my wheelhouse, so when I drive around town, I pay attention, I get out and talk to folks, and there are a lot of people in our town that I don't recognize. There are a lot of homeless people I know and have helped, but there's a lot right now I do not recognize. And, you know, when you talk to, you know, you go to this big conference where 500 police chiefs are there, they're all having this conversation that we're having. And when you talk to a lot of the homeless that are not from Lompoc in town, I've had at least 3 people tell me, you know, I always ask, well, why are you in Lompoc? And I've had 3 people tell me that people are friendly here, because we are friendly. We are generous, and we're a friendly place. And people hand me money. And one gentleman, he and I argued quite a bit. He had services. All he needed was an ID and to go get his services, and he would have money coming in every month. He goes, why would I do that? I make $100, $150 a day standing in front of McDonald's. So we're actually enabling the behavior with our generosity. Sorry, I'm going long. I'm almost done. If we do create it, and this isn't about us creating a homeless unit, but if we do, we'll need equipment. We'll need an ATV, which I'm working on, and hopefully I can get one that won't cost any money. We'll need the training, we'll just need the time, and we'll need the backing. But tonight, until that happens, I'm here today to ask for direction. What do you want us to do with the homeless in the riverbed? If you want to see what these plans look like, the ones I talked about, I could come back with a staff report, do all the research. Tonight, to me, is just about asking you what your direction is. I can't come back with a big plan, but I'll preface it by saying that it's going to cost money. It's going to cost salaries, and it's going to cost equipment. And if we remove debris, it's going to cost a bit of money. Planting the seed took out an incredible amount of trash, and that didn't even scratch the surface that's in the riverbed. And those were 20 pictures, but I've got 200 pictures like that. There's a lot of debris out there. I'm fully aware of the highly charged issue homelessness is, and I understand that it's fraught with potential litigation depending on our approach and our actions. The type of rules we enforce to address the homeless are low-grade misdemeanors, low-grade infractions, and this type of highly sensitive work needs leadership and the blessing of the elected, and it has to be planned with compassion and common sense. So with that, I know that you are being bombarded probably daily, as I am, with what we're going to do with the homeless. With that, I leave it in your hands, and I'm here for any questions.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate wanting to be proactive. A couple of questions. I think everybody in the city realizes that the riverbed is out of your jurisdiction. So do we ever receive support? We have been told forever that, oh, the riverbed is an environmentally sensitive area if you want to do anything else other than live there. So why wouldn't United States Fish and Wildlife key up Roger up and fund something to protect this area? The other thing would be the county. Send a kid down there on a quad, the county launches a helicopter. A thief goes down there, or a big drug deal, it's ignored. So it seems as though your department is the only ones that wants to move forward with some kind of action here, and everybody else is taking a hands-off and let's see what Chief Walsh does approach. The other thing I'm curious about here is the health and safety aspect of it. You know, there are codes, you know, California has health and safety codes. Why can't we leverage state money to enforce something with that? Because what you see here and going down there, the biohazards are horrible. It's going to be an epidemic of some type down there that will affect innocent people. And, you know, I mean, the city cannot afford to fund what needs to be done down there, and the people that live down there that need the help are not going to get it because of that. So, I mean, what can we do in that regard?
Well, first off, I apologize. I can't answer all the questions as far as money coming from other entities, but I can say this. The county, Santa Barbara County Sheriff, they said, Pat, whatever you need, we'll partner with you, because part of it is there, part of it is ours, some of it's a Caltrans owned property. It's a little bit confusing. It's kind of a checkerboard. I will say this about public health. You know, Santa Ana had a hepatitis outbreak in the homeless in their riverbed, and people were really getting sick, and then people in the town were getting sick. And so that's what they hung their hat on. And when I went to this conference in Long Beach, and I listened to these other cities, I came back, I wanted to get out of my car and kiss the ground in Lompoc. They have 7,000, 10,000 people in their riverbed. So I think it's doable here in Lompoc. And we won't do it alone. The sheriff will be with us. I talked to Fish and Wildlife. I've talked to them twice. I talked to them today. I'll be honest, they're a little, you know, it's a highly charged political issue. But they said, look, we can cite for, you know, littering in the riverbed and that kind of stuff. And you know, and I said, well, look, I don't really want to go out there and lay a bunch of cites. But if that is what makes somebody say, okay, I'm out, then we'll use that. But I do worry about public health. And if we do this, we'll come back with a plan that says, you can't live anymore, we'll give you 30 days, but when that day comes, here is mental health, here is, you know, public health, you know, here's some showers, we'll have a whole array of people there to help. You know, here's DMV, let's get you an ID so you can go get a job, or you can go get an apartment, or you can get whatever you need, because you need ID to do stuff. So we'll come with a huge comprehensive plan if we come back. But that is a question I asked the sheriff yesterday. I said, look, the city council is going to ask me about money. And he said, well, let's chat, but I don't think we're going to get blood out of a turnip. We're all strapped, so we're going to have to figure it out and be innovative. So, sorry, I didn't mean to go in circles on you, but I don't know the answer to the money part of it yet.
Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, Chief, you and I have had this conversation a lot, you know, on my various properties as well, and I think it's important that you forgot to mention, you know, shortly before that, the murder that was down there, there were 2 other fatalities. So, I mean, it's a killing zone between bridge and bridge. You get 1% to 2% fatalities happening there, whether they're murders or ODs or whatever it might be. So it is definitely not a safe place. But one of the questions I have is, at what point does it become a rust situation? I know there's many of the people there I have no problem with. They get along day to day. They aren't the issues. They clean up after themselves, and they get through. But recently I had an incident where a lady was coming at me with a syringe, threatening my life, threatening to kill me.
Right.
I did dial 911. The lady had walked off the property, and she got a warning. But at what time does it get that? Because I'm a sizable person, I could take care of myself, but many people are afraid to shop here in this town. And I had a forum here recently, and 50% of the conversation was about this. Mm-hmm. And the lady said she's afraid to shop in Lompoc. She's afraid to get out of her car in shopping centers. I've had some of them follow my wife to her car, checking her door handle as she's getting in her car. So it's not just about compassion. And I understand there's varying levels of it. There's people that get along fine and aren't issues. But there are some that are ticking time bombs for themselves and for us taxpayers in society. And at what time? I mean, I had a lady who threatened me who got a warning. She had a syringe in her hand and coming at me. So I'm just wondering, what time do we stop turning the cheek?
Well, I guess the syringe issue would be a citizen's arrest. You'd have to make that arrest. It's not a felony, and that we can't make arrests on misdemeanors we don't observe. So, and if that's something that I could deal with, probably not in an open forum like this, but that's something I could deal with on the side. As far as people being afraid, that's why I said businesses have to be, if we do this, the businesses have to be engaged. They can't just think that we, the police, are going to take care of their business. And what I mean by that is we've really had a hard time at the old Mervyns. And the people that own Mervyns don't live in Lompoc. I want to say they live in San Diego. And they've been really great the last year. We've called them, and we've signed an agreement with them. So now our officers can address people that are sleeping in front of the old Mervyns, because we can act as their agents. And it's just a 2-page form. City attorney has it. And you notice there's no homeless people sleeping around Mervyns. And that's just happened in the last 30 days. I also told the officers that Albertsons and Walmart and Vons is our food source. And if there are severely mentally ill people going in there and grabbing stuff, because there's one lady that she does it all the time, and if you confront her, she fires you. And I told Vons, you can't let her in Vons anymore because she hasn't bathed in 2 months and she's touching our food sources. So they've excluded her. So it's those kind of little things that we've got to do. I'll tell you this, what Fresno said kind of worried me. They had 7,000 people in the riverbed. They did exactly what we're talking about doing. They have about 1,500 homeless people in their town now. But guess where they are? They're in town. So people may be complaining now, but if we do this, they're going to be complaining more. And they're going to expect us, the police, to solve all of those problems. And we will address what we can, but people that own property have to address what they can, because they're the property owners. And it's not a cop-out. It's just we got to work together.
Councilmember Vega.
Chief, I applaud you in this direction. Do we have a plan in place, kind of a ballpark from going to your classes and everything, from moving forward here, if that's what we choose to do?
I don't have it put on paper, but I do have it in my head, and it needs to be fleshed out some more. We would pick a date, and we would give, we'd have to say 30 to 60 days. There's a lot of stuff there that folks might need to move. And we'd have to go almost on a daily basis and say, on this date, you're going to be evicted, and give them a notice and make sure that, because there's litigation coming if we do this. But if we do it right, we won't get sued.
I support the public safety of the people that are down there also, and the compassion and dignity from which being homeless goes along with, so I don't want to look down on them, but I see that there's people being victimized, there's theft going on in Lompoc. We've seen this. We can make ordinances, we can do shopping cart ordinances, we can do everything we can, and it's not really helping the people and the business people here in Lompoc, also for the people that are abiding by the laws. And then again, with the Thomas fire and everything else you mentioned, you know, because there is a public safety issue. Yes, they're living out there in the cold, but then the fires, you know, the fires and all the other debris. I've recently ran into some people that were walking the trails over there on the other side of riverbed, whatever that is called over there, by the riverbed, those little walking trails, and they're afraid also. They've seen people there with debris, and there isn't much, if any, lighting over in that area, so basically no one's walking over there because they're afraid of who's over there. I think as far as for the children in our community, as I advocated before about public safety, we have to take care of our families. I think the direction of being guided to mental health when needed, and then redirected and having that system, like you said, Mark Oshamala's involved with that, is probably key, because I'm not sure exactly how the system works, that they go to mental health and they're let back in and then somebody else is victimized, and then how do you categorize the people down there that are actually victimizing other people, and how do you categorize, and what do you do then?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a couple of things I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about the types of homeless people, and I would leave that to the experts. You know, there are service-resistant homeless people. They don't want any of this. They don't want our help. And so, but my worry is if we do nothing and everybody else is doing something, and we are a friendly town, our numbers are going to swell. I think the numbers we have now are manageable. Well, the other issue, when you talk about people being victimized in the river, they don't tell us. They tell us anecdotally, hey man, that guy over there, his name's Skeeter, and you might want to watch him. What's he doing? Well, I don't want to get involved, but he's stealing from everybody and he's using meth. Well, we need some tangible stuff. We can't just, you know.
I think just the cleanup that Mr. Malcolm out there and them have done before, I think just the debris that they brought back up shows that there's theft going on in Lompoc, and it's ending up down there also. Yeah. I would support this direction. I'm on the other end of this. I don't think that we can afford to look the other way, especially with the numbers here, and we don't want it to reach 5,000 and 10,000. Then it would probably be an unaffordable mess. So I would fully support that direction if you choose to move forward with it, or we all choose to move forward with it by asking you to bring a staff report back forward with some sort of a plan.
Thank you.
And Chief, I agree with Councilman Vega. I would ask the councils to support you in your item number 2, choice number 2, which would be remove the people and debris, and then offer, you know, support and continual surveillance. So that's a direction I'd like to see us go.
Yes, I fully support that, Mr. Mayor. If we can get a consensus on that, that'd be great.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll give you the third, and I do want to encourage you to continue those conversations with all the potential partners as well as the business community, because I know that it not only affects our residents and how it's impacting them, but H and Ocean and the businesses being impacted, and Home Depot and the amount of damage that's happening to their business. And if they can play a partner in this and help drive us finding a way to afford encouraging this. And then secondly, that fallout of, yes, if we move them out of the riverbed, and we all know that we don't have enough housing for the housing first concerns, it will be they end up in town. So we really need to aggressively look at that portion. So those are my 2 major concerns, is making sure all the partners continue that conversation with you and help us with all the moving pieces that are in this plan. So,
thank you.
Okay, I think you have
thank you.
Oh, Councilor Mosby.
Hey, you're planning on doing some of this in conjunction if the county gets the grant that they applied for?
Yeah, well, some of it. One of the things I didn't mention is next week I'm meeting with the public defender and the district attorney and the presiding judge to talk about if there are people that have fines and stuff that are precluding them from getting their services. Maybe we can wipe out the low-level stuff. And yeah, that would be part of that plan. Cleaning out the river really doesn't tie into that, but it could. I could see where it could if they do get that grant.
Yeah, they have a little bit for clean out, a little bit for Lompoc PD and.
They have a little bit for salaries for Lompoc. They have a full-time deputy in the program. So I just want to see if you wanted me to come back, and now that if you're saying that I can, then I will go actively address our partners.
I have one
Thanks.
more comment.
Okay, Councilmember Vega.
You know, economically, you know, aside from the people side of it, which is really important, I think for us, me being a business owner and everything, I get it. I don't think we're helping anybody by giving them a handout. I think the churches and everything are doing an excellent job. I think all the other resources are there, the guidance. I think some of the comments that I've gotten from some of the pastors and people out there, that some of the people that are asking for a hand or a help, maybe there would be some sort of training, as you mentioned, you know, to get them, the ones that really do want to get out of that little space that they're in, you know, so that we can help them a little bit more. I think that would be great. So I think the churches and all of them are going to be key in some of these things when the people are relocated or brought out of here. So I applaud all of you. Thank you for all your help.
You know, Councilman Vega, this is the first thing I found when I became the police chief 3.5 years ago in my office was this smart change, not spare change. And it has C3H, the Salvation Army Police Department logo on the bottom of it. So before this council, I think the council was talking about this. So.
No, that's wonderful. I think that probably the resources being given to the places that feed the people and can actually train them would be a better use of it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay. We're going to move on to oral communications. This is your opportunity to speak to us for 3 minutes on any. I'd like to have, if you'd hold off 1 second, where's Dulcie Sin? Okay, Dulcie, if you want to bring your guest up first. I've made prior arrangements with Miss Sin. She has a special person visiting Lompoc, and I've agreed to give her up to 10 minutes.
We're planning to go very shortly, though.
Okay.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to address our council. My name is Dulcie Sin, and I'm here tonight representing the Rotary Club of Lompoc. I've been the International Peace Builder Chair for our local Rotary for several years now, and we've been working on some wonderful projects, and I wanted to bring them to light to you and to the community here as well. Lompoc was the first city that issued a resolution to 2020, a year without war, and that project launched 7 years ago. 7 years ago, and it's still going strong. And the CEO of 2020 Year Without War, Joe White, is here to give you a quick update on how far that project has gone around the world. It's very exciting to think about how great things are happening in this world from very humble beginnings. And from Lompoc, we launched that project, and it's just grown so fantastically. And 2.5 years ago, I was lucky enough to go with an education abroad. I wasn't a student, but I went. There were a lot of young students who went through Vietnam and Cambodia. And while I was in Cambodia, I had the opportunity to meet a young professional woman, Sam Nung Heng, who is here with me tonight. It took 2 years to bring her to Lompoc to get her visa, and for her 2-week visit here, we are on a whirlwind tour of the Central Coast and different rotaries, and looking for support that say, you know, peace is possible. She works for an organization called the Cambodian Living Arts, which has been working for 20 years now after the Khmer Rouge regime, Pol Pot, finally was over, to bring back the arts in Cambodia. And I think that connects really tightly to where we are in our city of arts and flowers here. So I wanted to introduce you to her, and I brought a Cambodian scarf to share with you, Mayor, so that we can have a nice picture taken so we can send it back for her professional her professional growth. And I just wanted people in our community to know how wonderful it's been and how kind people have been to her. When she went through customs in LAX, customs was very, very tough on her. They kept saying, why are you here? And they said to her, why would someone be kind to you to bring you here? And I've thought about that a lot since she told me about that, because I thought, why would people be mean to you? And yet we're questioning the kindness, and yet coming to Lompoc, she's met nothing but kindness in our community to the different places that we've gone. So I wanted to recognize her. I wanted to recognize you for your generosity in supporting international projects. And I also wanted to recognize another Rotarian, Rob Klug, who's sitting in the back. Rob's getting prepared to go on he's been on several now, international service projects with our Rotary. And that is supported by him. He goes, the Rotary supports it, he goes, and he really makes a difference too. I think that, and he's going into a service project in Mexico once again, and I'm really happy to hear what he has done and what goodness he has spread out in the world. 2020, Year Without War, taught us that great things can come from humble beginnings. Sam Nung has taught me that hope can bring a great change in our communities, in your country, and that it can bring great light into what has been dark in our community. And Rob has taught me that we can all make a difference when we offer ourselves for service. And so I'm real proud of that. So thank you so much for letting me introduce Sam Nung. Do you want to say a few thank you? Just a little.
A little bit nervous, but I'm trying to. Thank you, Dorothy and Jill, for inviting me here, and then thank you everyone for welcoming me here too. And I would say, like, I feel like here is just like my home, and then I can see like beautiful smile from all of you here to welcome me. So thank you so much.
Can we take your picture?
No, I want you to speak, and then I'll take a picture.
Okay, that's usually not a loss. My name is Joe White, and I'm presently celebrating my 30th anniversary moving to Lompoc. I have spent a little over 30 years as a professor, and my area is political philosophy. And in about 2011, I got this wacky idea that I thought, if we're going to start to effectively deal with war, maybe we need 1 year off. Let's just try something simple. And with all these millennials and tech-savvy kids, maybe I could build that website. So in 2011, I went into my classroom and asked if anybody could help me build websites, because I'm not that tech-savvy. And sure enough, young man, Josh Wheeler, stepped up, computer science major, who happened to be from Lompoc. So for much of the spring and summer, at our home on the south side here, Joshua and I constructed a website and built that website here and launched it then in the summer. And by the time we got to about 15,000 followers from over 20 nations, we decided it was time to start our program of getting city proclamations. And so we had a number of people, I taught in Santa Barbara, who wanted us to go to Santa Barbara City Council, and we had Carpinteria City Council, and I said, no, it's got to be Lompoc. Lompoc's got to be the first city. And one of the reasons was not simply because we're from here, but Lompoc its population is the same as the city of Philadelphia's was in 1776. And I wanted to launch a revolution. And I thought this is the best place to start. And so now, 7 years later, we were invited to the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates in Bogota, Colombia. We have a number of peace laureates now backing us. We've been invited twice to the United Nations. The second time we were invited last year, we were selected as one of 4 groups to present to the entire assembly. We've just held our second conference in Italy, and if I can persuade Sam Nung, we will have a new president of 2020 AYWW in Cambodia. So I want to thank the City Council and John Lind, who's here, had signed that proclamation. And it's amazing how often Lompoc has come up when I visited the Vatican, when I've been in Italy, when I've been in France, when I've been to Colombia. And people want to know, where did this start? How did this start? In Los Angeles? No, go a little further north. It started in Lompoc. So a lot of times the heavy business of the city here that you deal with on and on, this is a little lightness. This is all good. So thank you very much for your support here. And Lompoc's making a mark out in the world there.
Thank you so much. Yes, we'll see us tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was kind of fun. So now oral communication continues. You have up to 3 minutes to speak to us on anything that can come before this council.
Deb Andrews, Mission Hills. I want to address homelessness. I applaud Police Chief Walsh and officers for efforts on behalf of homeless, but I don't think this is really a police issue except for criminal behavior. I suggest effective and lasting assistance for Lompoc homeless. The Lompoc Department of Social Services could assess and refer people who would like to get off the street for appropriate services or training. Health, dental, life skills, housekeeping, addiction recovery, mental health, or education needs. Necessary funds could be made available from our savings from zero-based budgeting and elimination of non-essential positions. These voluntary enrollees could be paid a stipend in exchange for cooperation, attendance, and community service work until graduation to self-sufficiency. I suggest resettlement camps for those unwilling to leave the outdoors, but are able to care for themselves. These camps are modeled after a country doing a much more humane job of providing shelter, Uganda. 1/2 of California is under federal land ownership. A portion of that land could be utilized for the camps. Each individual or family would have a plot 100 feet by 100 feet, space for shelter, and a self-sustaining garden. Equip people with sleeping mats, blankets, water containers, and a tarp to build shelter. There's a strong link between public health, water, and sanitation. Uganda provides 1 latrine for every 50 people. We could expand on that and provide a well for clean water, showers, and laundry facilities. A water and sanitation officer would monitor. Totalitarian regimes exert power by controlling access to water, food, and electricity. California water officials determined 11 water storage projects would receive little or no state funding due to low fish flows and few boating opportunities. Santa Maria water rates will increase 26% over 3 years. The increasing gas tax ensures food prices will continue to rise. As electrical usage falls, rates increase to make up for lost revenue. Poverty and homelessness will follow these trends upward. The problem will increase. Don't bleach streets to stem the spread of disease like San Diego has been forced to do. Upgrade our care of our fellow citizens to the Uganda model and start building the camps.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Chuck Madsen, Director of Programming for Coast Valley Substance Abuse Treatment Centers. I am here tonight in support of Chief Walsh's motivation to address the needs of those living in the riverbed. Personally, I don't know homeless. You know, I don't have the solutions to get somebody that's living on the streets into a home and become self-sufficient. I know addiction. You know, I know drug addiction, I know intervention, I know the steps to take to get somebody off and stay off of drugs and how to become successful that way. I look at this opportunity as kind of an intervention. You know, we are putting together a tremendous group of support, including law enforcement, to offer the individuals that are living there in that situation a step out of that situation. Coast Valley's commitment to this, if the city decides to go forward with this, is to be there every step of the way.
What Coast Valley's commitment is we will find residential treatment beds outside of our area, which we've already been doing for the individuals that need treatment, at places like Salvation Army's Impact House in Pasadena, Cry Helps, Teen Challenges in Bakersfield. Find and locate beds for those that want help as they leave the riverbed. We will be there to accompany initial contact, to offer this support. We will provide that transportation to those programs when located free of charge to the city. And I will personally be available every step of the way through this process to help those that are suffering with addiction down in the riverbed. This is a huge opportunity for those that provide those services in our town to come together and make a huge difference. You know, I've watched those videos, you know, like Pat Walsh was talking about in other areas in LA County and Orange County. I'm from San Fernando Valley. I'm from LA area. You know, I know 6th Street downtown. You know, I used to buy crack on 6th Street in LA. You know, I know those homeless cities. I know, you know, those areas. Lompoc has the opportunity to put something together here where that we can support those that are there in need and end the majority of homeless in our community. I mean, every community is always going to have homeless, you know, but if we can get it to a number where that we can address those individuals, you know, every step of the way and actually have some housing for them to go into, you know, if the number is down to 10, if the number is down to 20, then we have a chance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you for your offer of support.
Jeff Schaefer, formerly with C3H, now with Home for Good. My role with Home for Good is to be the Director of Community Engagement. One of the reasons why we merged and became Home for Good is I asked Eddie Taylor, who runs Home for Good, to raise more finances for more resources. When you start to look at Lompoc and what we need to do as far as more case management, housing specialists, more ability to navigate people into housing and then do retention for once they're in housing. Those are things we need to do. When we talk about the riverbed, I tell people all the time there's 4 steps to solving homelessness. First step is know everyone by name. So the most important step is there are people here, there are organizations here who already have relationships with people in the riverbed, Planting a Seed, the ACT team, some AmeriCorps members. The main thing is that they have to retain their trust in the community. There are people that are experiencing homelessness, whether it be families or individuals. If they don't want assistance, it's got to be client-based. It's got to be based on whether they're ready or encouraging them to be ready. Many of the partners here in the room have already discussed should the sweep happen, the creation potentially of a 2-week to 1-month triage center, which includes getting people that want assistance to be able to go there, get all the paperwork filled out, whether they want to go into the shelter, whether they want to enter into a detox program, whether they are interested in housing, whether there's opportunities for reunification. Just today, our team met and we talked about 3 people we want to work with Chief Walsh on reunification for. So a lot can happen if we can navigate people that want to exit the riverbed toward better solutions. If we can navigate them to a place where they can instantly get things done, like tickets forgiven, all those kind of things, the quicker this is going to happen. We all agreed, as far as partners, that the riverbed is not meant for human habitation. So we want to come up with better options for people that are living there and then offer them to them. As far as the sweep and policing, that's pretty much up to the city and the county sheriff and how that all comes about. My role with Home for Good will be to work with the partners, should the sweep happen, to put together the best kind of center or whatever is needed to help as many as we can, as quickly as we can. Also within Home for Good, how can I work with our organization to raise more funds specific to positions for Lompoc to be a better assistance for people in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Greetings to the mayor, city council, and Lompoc citizens. My name is Pastor Brian Halterman. I'm the pastor of the Micah Mission. I also am the pastor of the Saturday meal sharing and showers and care referral center in town. And I'm a homeless advocate and manager at the Bridge House. So I wear a few different hats when it comes to working with the homeless. But I want to share a little bit of having lived in Lompoc for 10 and a half years, I could still be considered a newbie in regards to be considered a Lompocian. But Lompoc is the town that I've come to be proud of, the town that I've come to love, and I'm even prouder when I see this community accomplish what we can accomplish when we as a community come together and set our minds on something. I'm here to speak tonight on that common cause that we as a city, as a community, as homeless advocates have to join together and accomplish. And that's something positive for those people that are living in the riverbed corridor. The property owners that surround that area and the community overall. After having built friendships and worked with many of those people who live in that riverbed corridor, I struggle with the thought of uprooting men and women, children, families from the only place that they can call home. Yet, and this is a big yet, I stand and speak tonight because I believe that we as a community need to find the compassion to say the riverbed corridor is not a humane place for people to live. We need to find the concern for the lives, both the families and the individuals that are being destroyed by those atrocities that are happening daily within that corridor. And we need to have the choice to stand up and do something about it. Is it an easy choice? No. Do we have all the answers? No. Do we know all the solutions? Not even close. Yet to do nothing is not a solution. In this room this evening, there are a group of homeless advocates, as well as many who aren't here tonight, who are committed to finding a way to collaborate with our police chief, with the Lompoc Police Department, with you, the city council, with the business owners in town, with each other, and with the community to discover what these solutions are, to offer opportunities for lives to be changed, and to see a better life for those that are living within that corridor. As I close, I want to repeat, I am proud to call Lompoc home. And even prouder when I look around Lompoc and see what we accomplish when we all come together. It's time for us to come together and be that community that sees lives changed because we showed compassion, concern, and care, and we made the choice to do something about it.
Thank you, Pastor.
Hi, my name's Tyne Campfield. I'm a Lompoc resident. I'm just here to remind the council of the several times that we have sat through city council meetings, coffee with Bob, meetings with Jim Mosby. I attended the State of the City address just to get a chance to speak to some of you about different options that we have. I moved across the country to come and live in Lompoc. I am not scared to go to Vaughn's. I don't think I'm going to get some disease because someone touched my apple that lives in the riverbed. But I feel like for the past 4 years, Jeff, Shondell, Brian, myself, and several other homeless advocates have basically begged you for help, for support. I have been told no to the tiny house community, which is still my #1 goal for Lompoc. I've had business owners offer up property, community members offer up their time and materials to build tiny homes, and I've been told over my dead body. So I'm disappointed to hear Chief Walsh talk about a riverbed sweep. There's a lot of great things that he did talk about, but I feel like there's so many opportunities that we've had that have been missed because of red tape within Lompoc. I feel a tiny house community is a huge opportunity. I was part of one in Madison, Wisconsin that's called the Occupy Madison. They're on their 3rd tiny house community as we speak. They've built a day labor program. They have gardening. They have a workshop where they sell their products that they build. And it's all done with sweat equity. The city is not paying for anything. they did work together with the organizations to cut the red tape. So I asked the city council to do the same, to look at common sense reform and implement just a few of the things that Jeff and Shondell, Brian and myself have brought to you guys several times already, and to fix this problem once and for all. A sweep is not going to help it. It's going to bring them in town. Santa Maria did a very small one, and it caused so many problems. I speak to the police there all the time, and they have people defecating on city property, City Hall, and it's a mess. So again, I just ask that you implement just maybe 5 of the things that we've already talked about for the past 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shondell Malcolm, Director of Planting a Seed. August 28th, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a powerful speech. I have a dream. We are now in 2018, and I'm here to tell you, Lompoc, we have a problem. We have a lady who drinks daily and uses our emergency services. She receives Social Security benefits, but needs a payee. We failed setting that up for her, and now she spends over $800 a month getting drunk. Lompoc, we have a problem. We sent another through detox. He graduated, only to be released back to the streets, even though the same agency runs the detox center and the shelter. Lompoc, we have a problem. California set the minimal rate for low-income housing at $950. You need an income of $1,425 to qualify, yet most of our clients have Social Security income of $800 to $900. Lompoc, we have a problem. We have a person who transitioned from another city who was left unattended for over a month with no supportive services after an agency was informed of the move. Lompoc, we have a problem. We have agencies from Lompoc and coming into Lompoc exploiting homeless population to apply for grants, yet that money is being shifted away from those it's intended to help. Again, Lompoc, we have a problem. We have 4 people, 3 veterans and 1 non-veteran, who are housing ready, yet we cannot find housing for them. Again, Lompoc, we have a problem. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Although I feel that the riverbed falls under insanity, I'm more concerned with the aftermath. Instead of Lompoc being proactive, we are becoming reactive, and I am more concerned with what we're asking the agencies to do. My concern is we have a serious fundamental issue with resources we claim to offer that need to be addressed. Our supportive services are broken. We cannot say we are offering support when we continue to hand clients a broken ladder and ask them to climb up. Homelessness is not a crime. However, we're right back to criminalizing their situation. We cannot arrest a person experiencing homelessness into housing. Pat Walsh did talk about the meetings that we're having about the homeless situation, yet all the agencies were not invited to that meeting. That also plays into a part of our fundamental issues. If you feel the need to exclude agencies on an action of this magnitude or any other matter regarding homelessness, then those excluding are perpetuating the problem. We cannot have coordinated outreach, coordinated entry, or any other solutions with continued exclusions, nor can we reach solutions with segregation. That's insane. Lompoc, we have a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mark Hashimala. Thank you for having me. So I feel like I've been in the middle of this for the last 6.5 years. I work with mental health and I do outreach, or have done outreach with the homeless. We do have a problem. Shondell is right. But we have had so many different organizations that are approaching the problem, trying desperately hard to fight. And I worked with all of you. I think at some point, I think you know the problem. I think you all are addressing it. I've worked with the police chief closely. He's addressing it. I think we just need to gel. It seems like there's animosity towards each other, and everyone wants to. We all want the same thing. We want to help these people. I don't think it's a safe environment for them to live in. I'd rather see them come and use our facilities, use our services. I don't think our services are ready for that. We don't have room in the bridge house. We don't have room. We don't have services for afterwards. I've housed a lot of people that, again, have gone back to being homeless because there's no retention. There's no services that are helping them get through the daily living skills that they need so desperately, and making the decisions that don't create problems in their lives constantly. It's been a fight again, and it's kind of full circle for me, and I'm going to bring up an odd thing is a year and a half ago, I wanted to bring the cannabis industry to this town for this very reason, because we don't have the money to support all this. I've wanted to support Shondell. I've wanted to support the MICA mission. I've wanted to support C3H. We're a small town that's broke. Well, we're working on it. We have the money. It's available. I'd like to establish the businesses that are coming to town and make sure that they know that this is a town that needs this kind of help financially. So we're hoping that they don't just come to town to make money. We're hoping that they come to town to help us to the next step, because as a community, we don't have the answer. We don't. I see the police trying. I work with them daily. I see all these services. I work with them daily. We are a broken system. Again, my concerns, and I like Tyan's, I like tiny houses for one reason. For me is the severely mentally ill. We have probably 4 that I can think of. One that gets assaulted in the riverbed on a weekly basis. If I could get them indoors, a tiny house is an indoor situation. They can't live in normal situations, apartments. They can't live next door to people. They can't have landlords in certain situations. They don't have the functions to do that. It's my job to get them to that point and then back into society. Thank you for your time.
Next, please.
There's one for you. So the other day I was sitting talking with someone. In the recent past, we counted 4 homicides in the river and at least 4 other deaths. So the chief is correct. It's not a safe place, and it's time for a change. But that's not what I came here to talk to you about. I came here to talk to you about an item on your closed session for this evening for 604 University Drive. And I'm concerned that based on other prior city actions, the owner of the property has been discriminated against by the city of Lompoc. The council should ask for and receive and review all of the correspondence regarding this property from the city and the property owner. The council should also review the various enforcement complaints against this property owner on other properties to see if a pattern exists showing that this property owner has been treated differently from other similar properties. I gave you 2 pictures. I think you're probably mostly familiar with these 2 properties. But first, I call your attention to 1128 North A Street, which has been derelict since, I think, 2010, but it might even be 2008. And you'll recall that we as a city spent $30,000 to clean the property up. And when I was mayor, I brought back the information on judicial foreclosure, specifically for this property, from a CalCog meeting. And the city attorney said, we're working with them, we're going to get it worked out. And I'm sure the city attorney is, and I'm sure it's not a simple solution because I'm familiar with the problem. But 4 years later, it's not worked out. Now, did we give the owner of 604 University 4 years? Or did we give him something less? The next property is 703 North A. And at least as far back as 2012, when I was mayor again, I was assured by city staff we were working on this problem. Nothing has been done that any of us can see. Now, things may be going on in the background, but 4 years has passed. Did 604 University get 4 years? I'm certain the city attorney will tell you that 604 University is not the same, and you can do what he wants you to do. I don't necessarily believe that. I think everyone should be treated equally. And it may be legally correct that you can do what he recommends that you do, but is that the right thing to do? Are we being fair to someone who took a burned down house that sat there vacant for years and started a process, and having worked on houses, got tangled up in the various requirements and needs a little help and a little time? Think of how you would feel if you were in that position. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication, and we're going to go to item number 7, which is appointments. Let's see, the first is 3 appointments to the Youth Commission. We have 2 terms expiring January of 2019 and 1 alternate position expiring January of 2020. We have 3 applicants. We have their applications. Would a council member like to make a recommendation? Councilmember Osborne?
Based on the requirements for the 2 youth terms, I would like to recommend Emily March and Carla Panoga to the youth positions and Victoria Gordon to the associate position.
Okay, and
I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Are any of these youth in the audience today? Okay. And let's see, next we have, okay, review of appointments that we are assigned to as a council. Let's see. So the way I'd like to handle this is each of us are already assigned to an assignment. If you choose to be removed from it, as we get to that item, let us know. If you'd like to consider being appointed to another assignment, let us know as well. The first one is Central Coast Commission for Senior Citizens, Area Agency on Aging, and I am the council member assigned to that. I would be more than willing to let someone else take that if they so desire. Seeing no takers, I will continue with that assignment then. Next is the California Municipal Utilities Association. It's a legislative committee. Councilmember Osborne is a council member, and I am the alternate. Councilmember Osborne, do you wish to continue?
Sure.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to serve on that, either as a council member or an alternate? Okay, then we'll continue that with Councilmember Osborne and myself as the alternate. Number 3 is Santa Barbara County City Selection Committee, and this is the mayors of each city, so myself being the mayor, I will continue serving on that. Next we have Community Action Commission, and that is, that's a Human Services Commission, so we'll let that stand. Next we have Liaison to the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and that is Councilmember Starbuck. Councilmember Starbuck, do you want to continue that?
Yes.
Does anyone else wish to be assigned that? Okay, Councilmember Starbuck continues. Next is the Electric Utility Joint Power Agency of Northern California. That is NCPA and Tank Commissioner. And I am serving on that. And let's see, we have alternates as Councilmember Osborne, and then staff Larry Bean and Brad Wilkie. I've talked to both Larry and Brad, and they are willing to continue serving. Councilmember Osborne, do you want to continue serving as the alternate?
Unless anyone else would like to.
Does anyone else wish to serve on that? And I'd like to continue serving as the commissioner, unless someone else. Okay, we'll continue that going. Next is Santa Barbara Air Pollution Control District. That is Councilmember Mosby, and Councilmember Osborne is the alternate. Councilmember Mosby, do you want to continue on that?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Osborne?
Yes.
Okay, anyone else wish to be considered for that? Okay, we'll continue on that. Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, that's Councilmember Mosby and Councilmember Vega as an alternate. Councilmember Mosby, do you wish to continue?
Yes.
And Councilmember Vega, do you wish to continue?
I'd like to leave that open if anyone else wants to be the alternate on that.
Okay.
I'd like to serve as alternate on that.
Okay. So if that's okay, there will be Councilmember Mosby as the council member and Councilmember Osborne as the alternate. Next, we have Breeze Political Advisory Committee, and that is Councilmember Starbuck. Councilmember Starbuck, do you wish to continue?
Yes.
Anyone else wish to be considered? Okay, then we'll continue that. Next is Multiple Jurisdiction Solid Waste Task Group, and Councilmember Mosby is the council member and Councilmember Vega are the alternates. Councilmember Mosby, do you wish to continue?
I will, unless somebody else wants it. The concern I have is, I don't know if they ever had a meeting or they didn't contact us on a meeting. I didn't.
I was on it for 2 years and they never had a meeting, so
Okay.
it probably goes like that.
I'll stay on.
Okay. Councilmember Vega, do you want to continue as the alternate?
Yeah, they never had a meeting, so I'll stay on it.
Okay. Okay, next is Central Coast Collaboration of Homeless. Now, I guess that name will be changing, is that?
Correct. It will be transitioning to Home for Good, and they will be presenting a new updated contract to the city regarding that.
And Councilmember Osborne, do you wish to continue as the council liaison?
I will, unless someone else would like a chance to serve on that committee.
Okay. Councilmember Mosby, would you like to step up? You're the alternate now.
I did it for 2 years already, so.
Okay, anyone else want to serve as council liaison? Okay, Councilmember Osborne, do you want to continue then? Sure. Okay, so we'll, and Councilmember Mosby, do you want to continue as the alternate?
Yes.
Okay, so that remains. And I think that satisfies our obligation for the city clerk. Is there anything else?
Mr. Mayor, can I just have a clarification if I could? On the one for the Community Action Commission, what did it say there? It said there, I'm currently for the Community Action Commission appointment there. I want to just clarify there. I know it said Human Services, but what is that?
Community Action Commission, actually, that is...
it's like it's mixed up.
No, it's the Human Services, I believe. Human Services Commission is the city's liaison with that. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Oh.
Commissioner Holt serves on that. She was appointed by council. So I don't know. If you want to change it, you can pick another one of the commissioners.
That's okay. I just wanted a clarification because I was wondering what I was doing on it. I'm okay with it, but is it different?
Victor, I think you are on CAC's
On the board, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. No, that's okay. That's for clarification. Okay. Okay. You're clear?
Mayor, I think one of the positions that were missing on this list that kind of come to mind was, didn't we have council appointments as a liaison with the Shumash?
That's an ad hoc committee.
It's an ad hoc, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and that goes to, turn the page. Okay, we'll move on to new business, which is item number 9. And we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, if I can get everyone to return to their seats, we're going to get going again. We need, where's Mosby? Okay, we're going to start the meeting again. We're going to go to item number 9, which is introduction of ordinance number 1645, parenthesis 18, amending chapter 9.36 to prohibit commercial cannabis activities in the mixed-use district. Mr. Pannoni.
Thank you, Mayor. As you'll recall, when we brought 1640-17 to you for second reading, we had let you know that the planning manager let you know that there was a concern he had about having, allowing cannabis use in the mixed use because it would be right next to residential, because that's the point of mixed use. And we advised you that we'd be bringing back to you an amendment to the code to take care of that. And then we had the suspension of the ordinance because of the referendum petition. And so we actually had it on the agenda, but then we got the referendum, so we took it off that agenda. But now that that ordinance is back in effect, we're bringing this proposal to you, which is to amend the current regulation that allows dispensaries in any place where a retail pharmacy is allowed, except for the MU district. In addition to that amendment, we're suggesting that we take out the word from the definition of cultivation, take out the word processing, which shouldn't have been there in the first place, and that was my mistake. And when I was reviewing it, we found that mistake. So tonight's action that we're asking you to do is to introduce ordinance 1645-18 to make those two changes to the municipal code.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Pannoni? Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, I know, because originally there was we thought it was out of mixed use already, and then you did an interpretation that pharmacy was retail and you can have 5,000 square foot or less in mixed use, right?
We always knew that pharmacy of 5,000 or less would be allowed in the mixed use.
Okay, well, originally my discussion, I mean, that's why I didn't bring it up originally as in my discussion with planning. And I get planning, you made it, where is he over here? There, Brian Helverson. Otherwise, you know, I would have originally had that as a thought process, but I think there's a degree of interpretation, and I don't know if it's time to talk about this now or whether I need to make it as a council request later on, but I had always assumed that Old Town Commercial was someplace you could have a pharmacy. And as I'm finding out that you can, and one of the reasons growing up in town and being born and raised here, and I think other people will remember, on the corner of H and Ocean was Braun's Pharmacy, and it was always there. And I guess that's why, I guess there's another layer of interpretation, so it's time to bring this up, try to make it as a council request on interpretations of, because I guess there's another interpretation about the Old Town Commercial and why cannabis isn't allowed in Old Town Commercial.
I wouldn't say that's an interpretation. I wouldn't say that's a possible interpretation of the language that's in the code now. The current code says wherever a retail pharmacy is allowed by right, then you can have a cannabis dispensary. Retail pharmacies are not allowed in the OTC. If you want to have them be allowed in the OTC, then what we'd need to do is have another amendment to the ordinance making that specific change, and you certainly could direct me, if a council majority wants to do that, direct me to come back with another ordinance making that amendment to this same section.
In Old Town Commercial wasn't allowed pharmacies because, why aren't they?
Yeah, we can ask the planning manager, because the zoning code doesn't allow pharmacies in the Old Town Center.
Does it specifically say pharmacies, or how is it?
Mayor, members of the council, medical is not allowed in the Old Town, but also pharmacy is not specifically called out in the Old Town Commercial. Other than that, I wasn't here at the time, so I don't know all the background of why they didn't want pharmacies in the Old Town.
When you said medical, you mean, it specifically states medical, not pharmacy?
Well, I'm just kind of just re-emphasizing that medical is not allowed in the Old Town commercial. So I don't know if that was one of the reasons why they decided to not allow pharmacies in the Old Town commercial. I mean, I can certainly come back and do some research and see if I can find some old notes or something of why they didn't want pharmacies to be specifically allowed in the Old Town commercial.
And the reason why I thought that is because for many decades, there was a pharmacy there.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that until you brought that up. That's
Yeah,
a really
so
good point.
so we're interpreting pharmacies to be medical and not
No,
retail.
I was just bringing up the medical because in addition to pharmacies, medical is not allowed. So I don't know if those are related, but I can certainly look into it.
Wait, in addition to, it states pharmacy, or does it state medical?
No, it states that medical is not allowed.
Okay, so you're saying pharmacy is a medical and pharmacy is not retail?
No, I'm just saying, no, that's not what I'm saying. Let me clarify. As the city attorney said, pharmacies are not allowed by right, so therefore cannabis is not allowed.
As it doesn't state, okay.
Right, and I'm not sure of the background. I just wanted to bring up that could be a relationship that might have been discussed in the past. I just don't know at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilman Starbuck.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you know, in the Old Town specific plan, it listed as not being allowed under light manufacturing. I will quote, manufacturing light, cabinets, clothing, instruments, pharmaceuticals, bakery, or signs. Laboratories are not allowed, medical, mechanical, and optical. That's what's not allowed. It does not say pharmacies are not allowed.
Who's first here? Councilor,
I have several people that are property owners over in the Old Town, and they would love to be included in these areas where we're moving forward in. So I would like to propose possibly an amendment that allows those uses in Old Town, if I can get a consensus here with that. You said something about we could actually ask for and have an amendment there. I don't see why we should have that as an exclusion. There used to be a couple of pharmacies when I was growing up there. Even before Bronze, it was a pharmacy. And so basically, I'd like to make that motion. If I could get some support on that.
Can we address this one first, then we'll
Sure,
make that one?
absolutely.
Okay, let's continue this one. Councilor, are you, okay.
I'm sorry.
Councilor Osborne.
So the current amendment is stating that we're adding the mixed-use district to those districts that are not being allowed to have dispensaries, but just dispensaries.
Correct.
Because of the retail pharmacy. And I disagree with the reasoning because we're not implementing other areas because of children being in the vicinity, because it's not a youth-centric or a youth center or a daycare or a school. We're having concerns that children are in a building that we're going to allow retail pharmacies in, and retail pharmacies have the same requirements that were pretty much being required by the state for a cannabis dispensary. So while I know we're allowed to, as a city, pick and choose which zones we will allow, what areas we'll allow commercial cannabis, I disagree with our justification. So as long as the council understands that they're making this choice based on we're just making a choice to eliminate mixed use from the availability as just a decision about not going to allow that, I can support it. I dislike our justification because if that's our justification, then we shouldn't allow pharmacies themselves in mixed use because they have drugs present, and if a kid's near it or somebody drops theirs going on the way out, a child may get exposed to it. So I think there's a disconnect in our justification, and just wanted to add that clarity. So again, I'll support it, but I don't support the reason we're justifying it, and like to bring up the idea that if we're going to not allow dispensaries, then in mixed use, we shouldn't allow pharmacies of any sort.
Councilor Starbuck.
Yeah, well, using our zoning book, the MU permitted uses, one of them under here is retail commercial less than 5,000 square foot. Conditional conditionally permitted uses in here is specialty stores, retail over 5,000, tasting rooms, tavern, and nightclub. So I don't get it. I think we're kind of going against our own, what we're using MU for and what we're trying to exempt here. So we need to really look hard at it.
Okay, anything else? Okay, public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Lingo, council members. My name is Rob Traylor. I'm a Lompoc resident. The issue of dispensaries in MU zones was first raised on December 5th. Council was shown a map with 600-foot setbacks and the resulting available parcels by zone type to include MU zones. Unfortunately, that map was never published online, only shown as a slide during the meeting, during which it was reported there were 83 dwelling units and 53 parcels zoned MU. Since that meeting, the city published a new setback map with the January 16th meeting agenda with the new buffer around Foursquare Church, which alone excludes a quarter of all MU parcels, but still with no MU zones identified. And from what I can gather, of the 131 total MU zone parcels, 111 are located within exclusion zones. And of the remaining 20, one is Stone Pine Hall, one is Bethany Lutheran Church. We're basically talking about a few parcels on South J and a few on either side of City Hall. It's doubtful the realistic opportunities for cannabis dispensaries in MU zones even enter into double digits. Well, notwithstanding the low impact, the staff report makes a number of interesting statements. First, Ordinance 1640 is now effective, and technically that's true, but now the city staff has spent time and energy on proposing amendments to an ordinance that we're still awaiting to merely be published online with the rest of the municipal code because it hasn't been updated since last year, to say nothing of the continued wait for the application to engage in commercial cannabis operations. Second, the report suggests that this amendment is intended to minimize the negative impact commercial cannabis activities may have on residential uses, along with the obligatory emotional appeal to do it for the children. The only way I'd consider that logical fallacy to be intellectually honest is if they were to have recommended language in the amendment permitting dispensaries in industrial zones where the incidence of children is likely far less than that in CC or PCD zones, but they didn't. Finally, the report suggests that there are still several locations in the city where cannabis dispensary operations may occur, the implication being we have enough without the MU zone options. But if I recall, the council specifically instructed staff to draft an ordinance that embraces the free market and not to worry with counting on their fingers. I've heard folks claim that the city staff has moved past prohibition mode into regulation mode, and I'm confident there are a number of businesses and consumers that would welcome the regulation. But it's all prohibition until we have an industry to regulate. So post the ordinance, post the application. There are millions of dollars waiting to be invested in this city. There are business plans with corporate social responsibility programs waiting to be implemented, patients waiting for their medicine. I urge you to strike Section 2 of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Patrick Brooks. I live in Santa Monica. I'm a lawyer with a law firm named Margolin and Lawrence. I don't have a speech or anything. I just have a couple questions, and that's it. I'm hoping to get the answers to them if I'm lucky before I leave tonight. First question is simply, will Ag 100 be a permitted zone under this ordinance, specifically for cultivation? Ag 100, that's kind of what I'm keen on. And the second one is maybe a question for staff, but the question is simply, when would applications be accepted for commercial cannabis cultivation, specifically cultivation? Anyway, thank you very much. Off topic, this meeting has been fantastic. I've been to a few city council meetings lately around the state, and it's heartwarming every time. So great job for what that's worth.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council, mayor, citizens of Lompoc.
I'm a little sick, so I'm wearing this mask today to make sure no one else gets sick. As president and founder of the Lompoc Valley Cannabis Coalition, over the past year, we have advocated for the patients, for the people who have voted to pass Proposition 64. We've had a long journey. It's been a bumpy road. We've had some setbacks, but I think that there is a clear will of the people that has been defined now. Former Mayor Andrew Salazar came here a few months ago and we were discussing cannabis and stated that he had taken a poll and that the 57% that voted for Proposition 64 was no longer valid because he had conducted a poll which stated that over 80% were opposed to Proposition 64 and the progress that we were making on cannabis. Now, with the referendum that came afterwards, it is the position of the Lompoc Valley Cannabis Coalition that the opposition to cannabis in Lompoc is now less than 10%, based on the fact that 10% of the population that votes did not sign that referendum. It's a clear designation to me that the people want cannabis legalized, that they value an open market, and that we do not want to continue to see the city kicking against the goads of progress and democracy. Now, you've had a very difficult job ahead of you. You've had several citizens that have come here. You've had people from outside of the community. You've had business people that want to come in. You've had people that have expressed a desire to invest thousands of dollars in the economy of Lompoc. If you go now and look on Indeed.com, you will already see jobs being posted for cannabis businesses that start around $16.50 per hour for jobs. Now, McDonald's, Burger King, or no other business that feeds minimum wage that we continue to bring into Lompoc, they're not going to be providing the kind of wages that the cannabis industry will. They're not going to be providing the benefits that the cannabis industry is going to bring. They're not going to be bringing in the economic boost that the cannabis industry is going to bring. I think it's time that as a city, we continue to move forward with this ordinance. Let's not restrict this anymore. It's been clearly stated by the people what they want. The referendum didn't pass. You do not have the backing, I believe, politically to restrict cannabis any more than what it already is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. John Lynn, Lompoc resident. So let me start by saying I didn't vote for the proposition. Don't necessarily believe in it, but I was brought up that once something passes, you fall in line and go forward because the will of the people is what we follow. So I've spent since 2006 spending a great deal of time in zoning ordinances, as most of you know. And my look at these two particular zoning ordinances is quite different from, I think, the staff's look at it. And Brian, I have all the documents for the Old Town specific plan. I'll get them to you tomorrow so you can learn too. The retail component under 5,000 square feet was a catch-all for retail. And having sat in on some of those discussions, I can tell you at the time that pharmacies were intended to be considered like any other retail business. They're not something totally different and freestanding, if you will. And the fact that they were not included in a laundry list like, let's see, what do we have? Haberdasheries and furriers, was that the intent was to make the ordinance broader and more inclusive. And the same is true of the mixed use ordinance, which is also a newer ordinance, and that one I was truly involved in, and I think you're all familiar with the fact that I don't believe it's a very well-written ordinance, but in terms of the discussion here, yes, I believe the intent for the retail side of that was that a pharmacy would be allowed no different than a dress store or a small grocery or any other retail business under 5,000 square feet. So I would simply say to you, I believe we need to be fair and equitable, and I really don't see a purpose in placing another set of restrictions, nor do I see that it's valid to place those same restrictions on Old Town Commercial. If anything, we need to find something that can succeed in Old Town Commercial and fill vacant spaces and do the one thing that will revitalize downtown, and that's slowly ratchet up rents. Because until we do that, we will continue to struggle down there to get anything done. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember Osborne.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the correction to Section 1 of Ordinance 1645-18 and to strike Section 2, except in the MU district portion of that, allowing mixed, therefore by allowing mixed use. That's my motion.
So just for the record, it's to introduce the ordinance as drafted, but deleting Section 2 and deleting the reference to 936-090 in the title as well.
As long as we're allowing MU districts, if that's what you said? All right.
Yes, and my second is on that same wavelength, as long as we're allowing mixed use also. That's why I'm giving her a second.
Could you repeat your first?
So the ordinance states Section 1 is a correction, pulling out processing as part of describing cultivation. So I moved to accept that because that does need to happen as a clarification of cannabis cultivation definition. And then to strike from Section 2 what is in red, except in the MU district, meaning that it will now allow the MU district to exist as part of a zone that cannabis can go into.
Mr. Mayor, I know I'm being technical, but we need to be technical. You're striking Section 2 totally from the introduced ordinance, and we're renumbering Section 3, Section 2.
And I'll give her a second on that too.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote. And that passes 3-2. Okay, with that, the City Council is going to recess to close session, and we will...
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
Before you do that, I believe...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We still have that one for the
yes,
Old Town
okay.
Commercial, sir, if I could make that as
yes,
a
go ahead.
request
I'm sorry.
for that. So I'd like to request that City Attorney do an amendment that allows Old Town Commercial to be part of, with no restrictions, as far as the pharmacies and the medical.
To allow dispensaries.
To allow dispensaries to be a
OTC.
part of Old Town Commercial.
Not the other cannabis uses, just dispensaries?
I think dispensaries for now. I think that would be good. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a second and a third on that?
I was going to mention in here that it really is allowed in Old Town. It's a conditionally permitted use. It's
the way that
the retail stores are listed under retail commercial here.
The way Ordinance 1640 was adopted, I agree that a conditional use permit could be granted for certain uses in the Old Town Commercial. However, the ordinance that was adopted specifically says that if a pharmacy needs anything special to be permitted in whatever zone, then it's not permitted under the cannabis rules. So we need to amend in order to do what it is that Councilmember Vega wants, and I believe Councilmember Mosby seemed to want, is we have to bring back an ordinance to change that language so that OTC specifically be permitted, I'm sorry, cannabis dispensaries will specifically be permitted in the OTC.
Councilmember Mosby.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a second. We need a third.
I'll support it.
Okay, so we'll bring that back then.
And I'd just like to answer, there was a question, a couple of questions that were raised. The commercial cannabis cultivation is permitted anywhere where agribusiness activity is permitted in Title 17, except that it's not permitted where community gardens are permitted. And in addition, it appears that we'll be able to have applications start coming in March 1st. That's what it looks like our timing is going to be able to reach. As I said before, I'm not going to guarantee March 1st, but that looks like when we'll be able to do it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we are going to recess to a closed session. And during closed session, we have 4 items. One is conference with legal counsel. It's an existing litigation. Second is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Third is conference with legal counsel, again, anticipated litigation. And fourth is conference with real property negotiators. So if you want to stick around, we will probably be, I'm going to estimate it about an hour. So.
Thank you.